Well, hello there guys, this is Chris at MyFactoryModels. What we have here is not a kit review, but it's going to be a Victor chat. In other words, it's a chat on the Victor V bomber as a future project or current project, probably quite long term, for me at least. So anyway, we've got here is the Revell handley page Victor, the K Mark II version in 1/72 scale, which was originally released in 1993 by Revell. But basically, it's a 1/72 scale matchbox kit of the same subject, K2B2, which was released in 1983, and this is basically a reboxed version of that. So, but it's not the K2 that interests me. That being, the reason being, I like this plane in its original beautiful format of the B1, or the early prototypes, when you didn't have all this refueling gubbins here and extra massive tanks and everything, which kind of still looks a great aircraft, but to me it ruined the lines of the original concept of what this aircraft was designed to do. So let's talk about the B1 or the prototypes, which is hopefully what I want to convert this into, which is going to be probably discussed in part 2 of this video. But in the meantime, as anyone who's into the V bomber trio probably knows, this was the Victor was the third and final of the trio, from the Valiant, the Vulcan, and then the Victor. And it's beautiful shape. I mean, obviously beauty wasn't, the priority of the designer, who incidentally was Reginald Stafford. Now, Reginald Stafford designed this in the early 1950s, the late 40s. The first flight was 24th of December 1952. Now, this is all based on some Air Ministry requirement to replace the piston-engined high-level bombers such as the Avro Lancaster, or the later newer one, I believe the Avro Lincoln. I nearly said Manchester then, but it was the Lincoln, all these cities. So yes, that was researched by the Air Ministry in the late 1940s, and that's where these boys came along. And now obviously they're iconic shapes. At the time maybe they didn't see it, I don't know. But it's as if they're almost looking back to the streamlining of the Art Deco of the 1930s. But at the same time, it's got that space age look, the streamlined space aging look from the 1950s. It could almost be out of that science fiction movie, Forbidden Planet. You could put that on there, no trouble. People would think, what is that monster? So, yeah, an amazing design. There were 2 prototypes which flew first of all. Well, actually, no, sorry, it was 2 prototypes were made. That was WB771 and WB775. It was the 775, I think, that was the first one to fly. No, actually it wasn't. It was the 771. Yeah, it's the 771 apparently, is the first to fly. And it was in a blue livery, which is very interesting. As you'll find, there's a few rare photos out there which show this. Then anyway, on I waffle, but an interesting note is on the June the 1st, 1956, a Victor B1, flown by test pilot Johnny Allen, actually broke the sound barrier over England, achieving a speed of a Mach 1.1. And it was the largest aircraft at the time to do this. So that's quite a fascinating little fact for anyone who's really into these that period. And then of course we go on then by 1959, you know, the B2 had then evolved and replaced the B1, mainly due to ceiling height requirements. In other words, the plane was getting vulnerable to being hit by missiles from the Warsaw Pact or the Soviet Union, so it needed more powerful Conway engines, which were eventually put into the airframe to enable it to achieve much higher ceiling heights and therefore hopefully evading the incoming missiles. But then later on we get to about, you know, by the mid to late 60s, then they started replacing a few of these and adopting them into the K1 version of the tanker, which, well, this is the K2, but the early ones were the K1 version of this K2 tanker that was the last version in service. So that was by 1965. Which the K1s later became the K2s, and that's basically the story there. And then they remained in service. I think there were a couple in service up until the early 90s maybe with the RAF, but they had their final glory days during the Falklands War when they I don't know how many it was, someone will have to correct me on this. There was a lot of them, 13, 20, I don't know, hell of a lot of aircraft anyway that basically had to refuel about 3 Vulcans that were designated with the role of attacking certain airfields on the Falkland Islands. But that's enough of the history. Like I say, this is not really going to be a kit review as such, but part 2 later on, I'm going to basically outline what it is I want to try and do with this particular kit. Incidentally, I got this for a great price. It was actually about £15 with free postage. Now this, in a way, this kit is redundant because Airfix have now just released the K Mark II. Well, it's on pre-order apparently, and that's hot on the heels of the major success of their Victor B2 kit in 172 over the last couple of years, which was quite a hit on the modelling scene. It's still on sale. So, like I say, in one sense this is redundant, this model, but then again it's not redundant when you consider it's only £15, and the only difference is some of the detailing, and it's got raised panel lines, but we'll come to that in the next video. So it's still a bargain, and anyone who wants a Victor should definitely buy one of these, unless, you know, they're prepared to wait and fork out for a lot more money for the new Airfix kit that's on its way very shortly. But this is a bargain. This kit's definitely a bargain. Okay, thanks guys for listening, and see you hopefully on the next video.